Hello, mindful friends. Today we're going to be talking about the components of self-love and how they help us with healing, growth, and transformation. This is the topic of my class starting tomorrow that lasts for 6 sessions. And if you want to learn more about cultivating self-love in your life, please join us for that. You can do so via Zoom or in person, or you can receive the teaching videos after they are recorded. You can sign up for that at newleafmindfulness.com in the group classes section. So the components of self-love is, one, where we start is the realization of who we really are, the connecting back with our heart center or the gold of our true essence. And I call it the gold from an old Buddhist, actually I think it's a true story, used by many of my teachers about a statue of the Buddha that was made of pure gold. And then during wartime, they wanted to protect this statue because they knew it would be stolen if they didn't. So they covered it all up with clay and mud so that it just looked like a clay statue. And during the war, it was left alone. And I think over a century later, it was still this kind of center figure for this practice center, this community. Even though it was just mud and clay, they thought it was this great statue. It had a lot of meaning, a lot of history. And then they went through a really dry spell in their environment, and the clay and mud started to crack. And as it was cracking, they started to see something shiny underneath this mud and clay. And so as they went to kind of chip it away, they ended up finding this gold center. It was entirely gold, super heavy statue, all of this precious gold. And they were shocked, right? This statue that, yeah, we celebrated all this time, we had no idea that its true nature was gold. And this is symbolic of what happens to many of us, is that we're living with these exteriors that we put on in order to survive our world, survive the difficulties, harsh conditions, fears that we have, and these layers of mud protect us. But the first component of self-love is to recognize that at the center of that, you are still pure goodness, pure gold. And that the process of developing self-love is what helps us to slowly chip away at those outer layers that we've developed and come back to this center. So the first component is realization of our true nature. And the second component is compassion. So compassion for self, right? We're always told we develop compassion for others in the world and how much that helps us. But we also have to bring that in to our own experience and seeing that, you know, compassion is this understanding that we don't want to do things that harm us or others, even if sometimes it feels like it, or the mistakes we make. But this compassion says there's suffering in you that generates this behavior. It's this, I love you anyways, you know, through these difficulties. I approach this difficulty or obstacle with understanding, which is actually our next component that comes with the compassion. They kind of are linked together, is that instead of fighting this, instead of being mean to myself, hating myself, I have a lot of compassion for what I've gone through that has motivated me to develop these outer layers of clay and mud, right? I know that there's some reason these have developed, and it doesn't help me to hate myself more. And from that compassion develops this understanding, which is our next component, is that says, all right, I'm looking at these obstacles, these harmful habits that I have, and now that I'm not just fighting them and hating myself, reprimanding myself, I can be with them in compassion so that I can observe and develop a deeper understanding of what fears were they, what past traumas were they, what suffering is it that might be creating this habit in me, this destructive habit, these behaviors that I don't love. I need to understand them, not just push them away and judge them, but understand their root. And as we're exploring for that understanding, we're also looking for what our true needs are within those habits, right? Because there's always a need at the base of negative, destructive things that we're doing. We're doing them because we think they will help us get something we are needing. So that understanding helps us to come back to those needs and be able to address them. And the next component is acceptance. So as we're discovering this, we're exploring ourselves, we come across a lot of things in our present, in our past, that might be unpleasant to face. They might be things about ourselves that we might have found unlovable or not so great before. But in developing self-love, it's really important to bring acceptance to these parts of ourselves, recognizing that there is no perfection. Nobody is perfect. I don't care who they are. If you read on any saintly person and dig deep enough, there are things you won't agree with, or struggles they faced, or parts of their personality they struggled with. And that acceptance says, we all have it. It's a part of life. And instead of being angry at myself for it, judging myself, hateful, I bring acceptance there. And I say, all right, you're here. You're a part of me, just like every other part. And I'm going to work with you. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to learn about you. And we're going to move through this in an accepting, helpful, supportive way, rather than a resisting, fighting way. And that moves us into the next component, which is forgiveness, is forgiving ourselves for whatever it was in the past. I think a lot of us will look at our past and berate ourselves for what we have done. Things we regret. We wish we hadn't been that way. We wish we hadn't said that, done that. But forgiveness uses all those other components. It says it uses that acceptance to stop fighting, uses that understanding about why this was really there, uses that compassion that says, hey, let's use this understanding for healing. I want to walk through this in love. And it says, I forgive you for that. I understand where you were at. I understand the needs you had at the time, the fears you had, the feeling that maybe those needs wouldn't be met, and that this was your only resort at that point with what you had at your disposal, the skills, the techniques, the supports. It was probably you doing your best at that time, and I forgive you with the intent to use this understanding and growth to move out of that for the future, to hopefully understand it better. And doing the component of living in self-love, which is a lot of nurturing that meets the needs that we've discovered in those understanding parts, the needs that create those layers of mud and clay. And that self-love is this deep self-nurturing that says, if I nurture enough, if I work hard and create these supports and gain these resources to help me meet these needs, then I suffer less and I end up being able to live in the world as this gold center that I know I truly am. And so all these components of self-love are what help us in mindfulness to base our growth and transformation and healing on kindness and love and that understanding rather than the hate and reprimanding and judgment. And I guarantee it works a heck of a lot better, and it creates a lot more gold and light in each of us and out in the world. So if you want to explore this more, please join us for our class starting tomorrow. Again, sign up at newleafmindfulness.com in the group classes page. And if you enjoy these teachings, you can find many more and similar teachings in both of my books, Living from the Heart, which is really all the ways back to that heart center, that gold center, and Healing Mindfully. You can find those anywhere you get your reading content. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I hope to see you all very soon.